I am officially annoyed with this coaching search. I am. And I want to be clear. I'm not annoyed at the Browns at all.
They're doing their due diligence.
As of right now, the Browns have done relative what I've asked them to do, right?
Casted a wide net, brought some names in there that not everybody was thinking about.
Brought some names in that we were thinking about. I think Jim Schwartz has a decent chance at this. I think that's something we asked for. I think looking for experienced coaches. They have brought in at least one or two of those guys on interviews. So it's not about the Browns. It is about the way this head coaching search is being talked about and the way people just can't say the words, I don't know. For instance, there is no earthly freaking reason on the planet that anyone should be proclaiming themselves a Grant Udinski, Nate Scheelhaus, or Dan Pitcher guy. Not in Cleveland. Pitcher I maybe can get away with because he's been in the division and he's been in Cincinnati for a decade. Maybe. But there is no reason that a 30-year-old that was the assistant quarterbacks coach 3 years ago in Minnesota, the assistant QB coach and assistant OC in Minnesota last year, and then it's basically just the guy, the AVP, the game planner but not the play caller for Jacksonville this year.
Yeah.
There's no reason to stump for this guy. There isn't. Nate Scheelhaus has spent 2 years in the NFL, and at best, either Scheelhaus or Udinski are 3 steps away from power. Because they're not the play caller, they're not the head coach, and I know Udinski's the offensive coordinator, but if you listen to somebody from Jacksonville from it, he's a very neutered offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Liam Cohen does a lot of the heavy lifting there.
And so listen, I don't have a problem. I get it. We all have to have a guy. We got to plant our flag, and I get it. This isn't that search. And there is no earthly reason why Grant Udinski or Nate Scheelhaus should be the next Browns head coach. 2 years from now, it's a different conversation. 3 years from now, it's a different conversation. They do not have the requisite experience. We can talk about Kevin Stefanski and how young he was. Guys, he was an assistant on every part of the offense up until 2 years before he became the OC, and then he called plays in the final year he was there.
Well, and even I know somebody's driving around thinking to themselves, well, Sean McVay was 30 years old when he got the job. And yes, that's true. He was the OC in Washington, but he was a more hands-on OC than what Udinski is. I think that might be some of the differences there.
But let's just face the truth on this real thing. If the Browns want an offensive-minded head coach who can call a hell of an offense, an offensive wizard, there's one guy they've interviewed to this point, and also we got to throw in the young modifier in there. There's one guy that fits it, and he's a former head coach in Miami. Grant Udinski. If Mike McDaniel was not on the board, Grant Udinski and Nate Scheelhaus might seem like they make more sense.
And Mike McDaniel might end up not being on the board by the time this thing is done.
That is also fair. He's interviewing in Baltimore, which is
exactly
something we're
right.
going to get to. But there is no way that you can put up what Mike McDaniel's done with a decade-long run in the NFL as an offensive coordinator, as an offensive assistant, pass game coordinator, wide receivers coach, and then 4 years as a head coach and play caller. You cannot stack up Grant Udinski or Nate Scheelhaus on that level. So if the Browns are going relatively young or young, offensive-minded, genius, wizard, whatever the hell you want, no real – Todd Monken is older than sin. He's 59 years old. That shouldn't disclude him, but if you want young, it's not going to be Todd Monken. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of people that debate what kind of offensive coordinator he is, considering he just got John Harbaugh fired effectively in Baltimore. But I digress. If it's defensive coordinator, well then Shula's got a spot, Dirty's got a spot, the Dirty Bird as we're going to call him, has got a spot. There are plenty of names that all of a sudden become more a part of this conversation. But for the love of God, I've already heard people today on our own station. Yeah. I've heard people say they're going to get this wrong. You have no earthly freaking way of knowing that. We do not need to be cynical. I get it. They just won 5 games, and cynical's in. I do.
Well,
but for the love of the sweet Lord in heaven, can we let this thing breathe a little bit?
Are they saying that they're going to get it wrong because they just don't like McDaniel then? And if they don't like McDaniel, then they got to be going towards one of these young offensive coordinators? And as you laid out, they don't have the experience?
No, they don't like it. because it's either not Kevin Stefanski, which is fair if you didn't want to fire Kevin Stefanski. If you were on record of that 3 weeks ago.
That's one thing that I keep going back on now because I feel like so many people are trying to make that case, and it's like you guys were the same people saying you wanted him fired.
That would
you don't get to run that one back.
But that actually is revisionist history.
Yeah, you don't get to do that.
Maybe we shouldn't have done this. Now, okay.
I fired him 7 times. I'm happy Stefanski's not here. I'll stay happy Stefanski's not here.
But I understand. So that's one thing of the cynicism about this search. Nothing has changed. The job's been open for roughly 10, 11 days. Nothing has changed. Oh, you don't like the candidates. They're the same candidates that you looked at on a piece of paper when they fired Kevin Stefanski. The names of the list has not changed relative to 1 or 2 names. But then to come down to it, and it's like, listen, I can give you the best case for Grant Udinski. Coaching trees. Right, he comes from the right coaching trees from Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, and now Liam Cohen is well thought of after what he did in Tampa with Baker and Jacksonville.
He starts from the Matt Rule coaching tree.
Nobody needs to talk about that.
Did you ever see him when you were in Carolina? By the way, you guys should have crossed paths.
No,
right?
because he was no. I don't want to say nobody. No,
it wasn't that long ago, but
he was like a
that's
OQC
kind of the point.
guy.
But it was like that was when you were in Carolina, correct? I mean, I get it. There's a lot of people that work for the Browns that I've never come across that are in that building that 5 years from now will be going for a job, and I'm like, I don't know, guys.
But I promise you, nobody heard that name outside of like maybe Matt Rule's offense.
Because that wasn't a long time ago. Yeah, he worked under Matt Rule at Baylor, and then Matt Rule takes him with him to Carolina, and then obviously he goes from Carolina to Minnesota, and then in a 2-year stretch with Minnesota and now Jacksonville, he's basically made a massive name for himself somehow.
But do you know how I know? But again, coaching trees, even with Shieldhouse, Matt Campbell at Iowa State, Sean McVay. Okay,
that's really good.
I can kind of get around with that. They've also had multiple stops with multiple head coaches. But when it comes down to everything else, I have not heard, and we're talking about guys that cover the NFL that talk with these guys. Jeremy Fowler was on with the Morning Boys today. I've heard Albert talk about this. When they can't tell you definitively, like when they're like, really smart guy and can explain very complex things in like a simple way.
Like make everyone be able to understand it. It's like, who can't do that? You're supposed to be able to do that.
That's like bare minimum for the job.
Yeah.
Like, oh, he's really smart. Also, bare minimum for the job.
A thing that a lot of people in that job usually are.
And what does that tell you?
Sometimes there's some dodos in there.
When nobody can point specifically to why a guy should have a job beyond he's on the right staff or he's been on the right staffs, do you know what that tells you? He shouldn't be the head coach. And I want to run this back. I have no problem with the Browns talking to these guys. I have no problem with the Browns bringing these guys in for second interviews. And I can, if they hire him, I'm going to be all ears on why they hired him. But I need something concrete. But we got people taking sides in this entire coaching search where it's like, do you just not want to say you want Mike McDaniel?
Well, so here's the thing.
Do you just not want to say Jim Schwartz? Is it too passé to say a popular name?
It might be they don't like McDaniel, and it might be they don't want to do a retread, and that's just not where I'm at. I want McDaniel, but so like when Mike Tomlin got the job in Pittsburgh so many years ago, there's not a Pittsburgh sports talk radio host that could have been like, I want Mike Tomlin, because it would have been insanity. They didn't know enough about Mike Tomlin, and then you find out after the fact, obviously, that he blew him away in these interviews, and they thought that this was their guy, and so we're in that stage before that. Like if they go with Udinski, then we're going to have that press conference, and then it's going to be on Andrew Berry to explain all these reasons why. The part that's falling short for myself is I don't know how any fan listening right now, how they can stump for that. Because they're not stumping for Udinski. They're stumping for the idea of what Udinski represents.
Yes.
And that's where there's a difference here. And so I get it. If like in your mind, you're like, I don't care. Hiring young offensive coordinator, that's the way that you always end up out of your mess. Then okay, then that's your philosophy on it. But attaching Udinski's name to it, I think, is just really interesting.
I think when it comes to fans, I think these are all just names. Like we were talking,
and their names 3 months from now, 99% of the fans aren't going to be able to say back anyway.
100%. And so, like, I never hold it, guys. I don't put it on the fans to know what Grant Udinski is here for, or what Mike McDaniel really did in Miami.
No, because all we got is like 3-minute presentations from the Rams and what they want to put out, where they have lasers and zaps every time he clicks a mouse on his little mouse board.
If you like Grant Udinski because of a video you saw on TikTok as a fan, I really cannot jam you up. But as media members, just say it. If that's all you got on Grant Udinski is a TikTok video, please, for the love of God, just say it.
They like the idea.
That's more genuine than, well, he's had a lot of success with this. No, he hasn't.
You
can't give him credit for Sam Darnold. He was the assistant quarterback coach. You have to give that to the quarterback coach.
Well, I want to know what is so different than because if it's a philosophy, it's like I want young offensive coach. Then wouldn't you have a really hard time differentiating between Dan Pitcher, between Grant Udinski, between all these guys?
I could get you anybody on anybody's staff. Clay
it's like,
Kubiak, why not him?
That's all, and that's what I'm saying. Like it all fits these same little boxes that it seems like the fans want checked. I think a lot of people are happy that Andrew Berry's trying to find his quote unquote next Sean McVay. That makes a lot of people happy to hear that, even if the reality is that we've run out of the next Sean McVays. But it's all about just checking boxes. It's all about getting them to fit in a profile that they want.
So listen, the cynicism is driving me crazy. Jimmy Haslam was a bad owner in a lot of people's eyes 3 weeks ago. He didn't suddenly get worse. Jimmy Haslam was going to be involved in this search 3 weeks ago. This didn't change. Nothing has really changed here. So between that, and here's the thing. I think what you're hearing people say, I'm a Udinski guy, I'm a Shieldhouse guy.
But at least they're not cynicism when they're choosing guys.
I'm a pitcher guy.
That's something.
Well, no, but while also predicting it's going to fail. Not everyone's doing that, but we're getting a little bit of everything.
That's a little weird, by the way. If you're like, I'm a Udinski guy, but then I think Udinski's going to fail. That's a little weird.
But like when you're doing this, what's killing me about all of this is you're just trying to be right. There's a lot of people lining up to try and say, I'm not surprised by this hire. You don't have a crystal ball. This is a search. And I think when I hear people say, I hate this search, it's because you haven't been able to get to a point where when they say whatever name it's going to be, you can go, I knew it. I had it. Guys, who gives a rat's ass? There are too many people in the Cleveland media trying to say, I was right 2 weeks from now, instead of just honestly looking at any one of these coaches and making an educated opinion. But you cannot make an educated opinion on Grant Udinski because there's no facts.
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing you can go off of. That's the problem within this. And that's where I think some fans are just starved for more information because they want to make an educated educated opinion. They want to be able to have all the facts. But what's funny about it is if I've heard one person mention the same story about Udinski, I've heard it 12 million times because everyone goes and reads the one article that the Vikings put out like 2 years ago. And it's like, so we're all recycling the same stuff. We all have the same info because it's not casted to a wide net. It's really tough for people.
I'll just say this on air,
It's really tough.
Because, again, I want to be very clear. My frustration right now...
It comes from a good spot. When you say it that way, I feel empathy there because it comes from a good spot. They just want to know more about this process, but the problem is that that's not how these processes go. The Browns don't let you in on more.
Right, and by the way, I do think that this is a good sign that the Browns are not leaking a lot of stuff because
we have nothing coming out.
I'm hearing a lot of the same things.
Kind of makes you wonder if maybe the only time we got something was that just Stefanski and Paul DePodesta telling the media.
And in fairness, like this search specifically is a really bad game of telephone. I know because I'll be on a phone call with somebody that I know knows somebody else. And then I'll hear that person's opinion, that other person change their opinion the very next day on air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, and by the way, it's not just one person or multiple shows. It's everybody. And it's just like, guys, I want Mike McDaniel because I think his running game here would be a lot of fun to watch. He's consistently creative. And from an offensive efficiency side of things, every year in Miami, with Tua or with a backup, he had a top 12 offense. If I pair that with a great defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, all right, I didn't get my leader of men, but at least I can tell you, hey, I've got a top 10 offense potentially and a top 10 defense. That gets you into the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. You cannot do that with Grant Udinski. And if you are, and this is another way of looking at this, if you are saying Grant Udinski, it's just saying you really want the unknown. Well, Mike McDaniel is just the known version of this without the extreme fail rate of Udinski, pitcher, or God, I'm just saying I'm saying a law firm at this point, Shieldhouse.
Udinski, pitcher, and Shieldhouse does sound like someone. Hey, injured in a car accident. Call Udinski, pitcher, and Shieldhouse. They'll get you right.
I feel
All
better.
Right, you good?
I feel better.
You good?
I feel better.
Not as ornery as I thought you were going to be.
No, because I don't want to crap on anyone. I really don't. It's just it's not even about the last 24 hours. This whole week, like. So many people with the way this is playing out are sucking the fun out of this coaching search.
Yeah, no, that part's 100% true. Like, I like this stuff. I think this stuff is fun.
Yes.
I don't understand the people that are bothered by this.
And I just can't hear another person be like, one, they're going to mess it up, or two, oh, this is just no fun. Go to accounting. Find a different career.